Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange live show. I am your host, Matthew Miller. This is our 29th edition, our first that is going to be primarily on the SEC and Texas channel. So please hit that like button, subscribe down below. We are here now for the foreseeable future. Might be on Mark's show probably at some point with Texas being a big brand and everything. But today, it was a hell of a day in college football. But before we get into that, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. And also, if you're going to go to college basketball because it is that season, go over to ticketsmarter.com, save yourself some money, type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 or more, and then type in code BIG20 for $20 off a purchase of $300 or more at ticketsmarter.com. Again, subscribe to our channel right here, the SEC, the voice of college football. We will be here primarily throughout the offseason. Please come and join me. I need more people in here. I need the comments coming. Go over to the Texas channel, subscribe as well. It really helps out what we're trying to build. Guys, I'm trying to build this up. I think I offer a lot to the table. I bring a lot of content here. The more people I have, the more conversation we can have. I like to have a show where I can have a conversation back and forth with you guys. I also provide pretty good information, up-to-date information. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe, and let's jump into it. The best, first off, just a crazy day. As you see on the screen, Nick Saban retires. For Texas fans, Bo Davis leaves to LSU, which a week ago was reported by Bobby Burton that he was going to stay. And I think that information was correct. We'll get into why I think he left, but let's start with this. Nick Saban retires. This is at Alabama, 6-time national champion, 9-time SEC champion, 206 in 29 overall record. He had over 100 players drafted in his 17 years there at Alabama. He is the best college football coach that has ever lived. He's fantastic, and this helps out Texas. I think there's a lot of people talking about, will Steve Sarkisian leave? Guys, Steve Sarkisian was there. He chose to come to Texas. He was promised the coach in waiting. He's not on the short list that Pete Thamel has. We'll run down that in a second. He's not going to go to Alabama. There's about a 5% chance. I don't even think he's going to be their first call because they know that as well. If they get desperate enough, they'll probably call him. That's not going to happen. And we have the big money donors where we just got money whipped by LSU a little bit today on top of a couple other things why Bo Davis left. It's not going to happen. So I'm not worried about Steve Sarkisian leaving. I think there's about a 5% chance of that happening. So, guys, forget that worry. Let's talk about the possible candidates because I do think this helps Texas. I think you're going to see guys jump in the portal. I think Isaiah Bond and Mari Nyblack at the tight end position are two guys Texas would love to have. If any big defensive guys come in, Caleb Downs would be pay whatever you got. Because if you have Derek Williams and then or Andrew Makuba or if Jahdae Barron decides to come back, rotating at the safety position with Caleb Downs, it becomes the best safety room in the country if Caleb Downs jumps in the portal and Texas is able to get him. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, like I said, the two guys to really keep an eye on are wide receiver Isaiah Bond and tight end Amari Nyblack. That would be a hell of a pull for Texas if they're able to get him. But the guys to look out for Alabama, they make sense. Dan Lanning was a graduate assistant at Alabama. I think Oregon can pay him more money, but I think Alabama's a better job. It's in better recruiting country, and I think Dan Lanning would do a good job there. I think if he's called home and the money's equal, he may go. Kalen DeBoer, I think it'd be an awkward fit. I think Kalen DeBoer is a hell of a coach. I think he'd do a great job at Alabama, but he is a very awkward fit at Alabama. Coming from Sioux Falls, then going to Washington, and then going to Alabama, a weird jump for me. I don't see that happening. I definitely think they kick the tires on him and see if he is willing to go and make that jump. It'll be interesting. Will Washington pay for someone like Kalen DeBoer? It'd be very, very interesting to see. The one that's obvious is Dabo Swinney. The problem is this guy doesn't embrace college football as it is today. I think 5 years ago, if Nick Saban were to retire, Swinney would have been the number one call. I really believe that. I don't think he's the number one call anymore. I think he's probably third, fourth on the list. And honestly, I don't even know if he'd want to go. A couple years ago, I would tell you he doesn't want to go at all because imagine following Nick Saban. You're already having success at Clemson. That doesn't make any sense. Now, does Dabo Swinney forecast, I may not last very long here at Clemson. Let's jump over to Alabama. Maybe it resets your clock. It may not reset it long because I think the guy that follows Nick Saban, unless he wins a national title within his first 3 years, is going to be fired. That's what I believe fully. So if you're someone like Dan Lanning, if you continue to do what you're doing at Oregon, you could be there the rest of your career. And it depends on what these guys want, how their ego needs to be stroked, all of this stuff, guys. It's a very complex decision. Do you want to move your family across country to Alabama and possibly be fired in 3 years and then having to restart as like Dan Lanning is like a defensive coordinator somewhere when you could have just stayed at Oregon for the next decade and gone 9-3 and they wouldn't have given a shit? I don't know. James Franklin, I don't see that happening. I 100% think that's an agent thing trying to get more money from Penn State, which is hilarious. If I'm Penn State, I'm like, here, buddy, here are your bags. If you want to go to Alabama, have fun. That's what I'm doing if I'm Penn State. Don't fall for the okie doke there. Don't give him a gigantic contract extension. Mike Norvell, I think this is the number one candidate. I think if someone's going to leave, it's going to be Mike Norvell. The buyout's low. You literally just went through a period where you were left out for Alabama, Mike Norvell. You were left out for Alabama. You're in a shitty conference that you can't get out of. Alabama is a jump in a job to me from Florida State to Alabama. I think this makes the most sense out of anyone I've seen mentioned. Cheap buyout, good coach. Mike Norvell should be the number one candidate for Alabama, period. I think he would kill it at Alabama. I think he's one of those guys. He's a leader of men where I don't think he would be too scared of the Alabama light that's going to be shined on this next coach. I think he'd do a good job, and I think that's who they should hire. That would be my pick. We'll see what they go with. And then Marcus Freeman. If Marcus Freeman goes from defensive coordinator at Cincinnati 4 or 5 years ago to defensive coordinator at Notre Dame to head coach at Notre Dame to Alabama head coach while all accomplishing nothing, that is freaking hilarious to me that Marcus Freeman could become the Alabama head coach. It's all based off potential. And honestly, guys, this is going to sound weird, but it's true. The guy is a good-looking dude. That plays a part into this. There are multiple studies you can read about him to where if you look better, you're going to get higher up jobs and stuff like that. Case in point, Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy had a debate at one point. People that listened to the debate on radio said Nixon won. People that watched said Kennedy won. You know why? Because John F. Kennedy is better looking than Richard Nixon. That's the only reason Marcus Freeman is on this list to get a job at Alabama. That's the only way, unless his agent is floating that name out there. But if Alabama hires Marcus Freeman, I will laugh. That'll be a terrible hire. It doesn't make any sense. He has not proven anything other than being handsome. That's all he's done. So congratulations if you get a job based off that, but that should be the requirements. To me, if I'm choosing for Alabama, I think your top 3 calls should be Dan Lanning, Mike Norvell, and then I would probably go Kalen DeBoer. Those would be my first 3 calls. I think Dan Lanning or Mike Norvell are a tier above the rest. I think they fit. I think it makes sense. I think money-wise it would make sense. Everything makes sense there. I think Kalen DeBoer geographically doesn't really make sense from where he's coming from, but I still think he'd do a pretty good job there because he's a good coach. I don't know if he'd want to take on that scrutiny. I've seen him in interviews. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that would live up to that situation. It's going to be a hard situation to live up to. That's another reason why Alabama might be a top 5 job. But right now, I don't think it is. For the simple fact, you're following the best football coach of all time. Why would you want to go there? And again, unless you win a national title in the first 3 years, you're going to get fired. You will get fired. I'm telling you that right now. You see what is happening at Ohio State with Ryan Day? Urban Meyer won 1 national championship in 2014, and look what's going on. Nick Saban won 6 in 17 years. 6. Unless you win a national title right away in your first 3 to 4 years, you're going to get fired. So I don't know why anyone would go there. If I'm honestly, if I'm Alabama, I don't think it's smart to hire someone on that upper echelon unless you're 100% sure. If you're not sure with any of these candidates, go hire an assistant coach because he's going to get fired no matter what anyways, most likely. So unless you're 100% sure, don't make the big splash hire. It's going to be very interesting. This plays a big role for Texas, and the fact that a lot of recruits were lost in in the Nick Saban era from Texas that went there. I think Ohio State and Alabama stole the most recruits from Texas. If Ryan Day gets fired, that's going to be funny because I think that opens up Texas to Texas for the first time in a very long time where it's our state. You see A&M struggling, Alabama with Saban gone, and then if Ryan Day struggles again and is fired, I should say. He hasn't really struggled. He struggled to Ohio State standards. That's huge for Texas. And we'll talk about, like I said, the impact. Isaiah Bond, Amari Niblack, Ryan Williams, who just reclassified to this year, was the top wide receiver in last class. I think he's the top 3 or 4 wide receiver in this class. He might even be number 1. He just decommitted, and he's taking a visit to Texas in a couple weeks. So it would shock me, honestly, if Ryan Williams isn't going to end up at Texas. I think he ends up at Texas. His quarterback, his high school quarterback, is already pursuing him. He's going to go to Texas. So I think he's going to end up at Texas. And that, to me, leaves Texas with one more wide receiver spot. We will get there, too, in this show. Next up, we're going to hit the Bo Davis replacement, but I will jump into the comments real quick. Please hire Dabo. Is that Ferris, are you really wanting to hire Dabo as your head coach? Because I totally disagree with that. I think Mike Norvell or Dan Lanning should be your top two options. I think that would be a very good hire. I think those are the only two guys that could live up to the expectation or come close to the expectations that Alabama fans have. I think they're unrealistic expectations. And I think Alabama's now going to be forced to live in the real world. You were living in fantasy land with Nick Saban. Winning 6 titles in 17 years isn't possible. Kirby Smart's not going to do that, Georgia. I'm going to tell you right now. Even with Nick Saban retiring, that's just not going to happen in the new SEC. He's not winning 6 titles in 17 years. He might win 6 in 25 years. Not going to do it in 17. That means you're winning a title every 3 years, guys. That's not realistic. It's not possible, and Nick Saban did it. So if you're expecting the new coach to do that, you're dumb, honestly. If you're an elite school like Alabama, one every 10 years, that's what you should expect. And I have no issue with those expectations. But one every 3 years, what Nick Saban was doing is unrealistic, and it's just not going to happen. Now up to Texas on our side. Bo Davis finally leaves. We have been hearing for multiple years since Bo Davis got here, he's going to leave, he's going to leave, he's going to leave, because he is a sought-after coach, guys. I think he's the best or second best defensive line coach in the country. I think it's him and Larry Johnson. I think Larry Johnson is kind of living off his past history of the Bosa twins, Chase Young, and those guys, because he really hasn't developed anyone to that extent. He hasn't done much with Jack Sawyer. JT Tuimoloau, I can't even say his name. JT Tuimoloau, I guess is how you say his last name. Good player, but hasn't produced to the level of his 5-star capability. So I don't think Larry Johnson is as good as people make him out to be. I think Bo Davis is honestly the best defensive line coach in the country, and it's a great hire for LSU. The reports are they contacted him last week, 10 days ago. He said no. They upped the money today and made him a higher offer. I think he was making $1.1 million at Texas. He's going to be making 1.5 at LSU. And also his son is going to transfer in from Southeast Louisiana and be under him. So, I mean, Texas, to me, I think could have matched. But I think Bo Davis was like, even if you match, I want to go coach my son. So unless you can do that, I'm going to go. And let's be honest, guys, we weren't going to do that. Why would you bring in a guy to take up a valuable roster spot on the defensive line when you just saw why we lost to Washington? We lost to Washington because of our coverage particularly, but I think it was because we couldn't get pressure for the most part. And you're going to give up that spot to Bo Davis and his son, his son's not a very good football player, and I don't know why LSU's doing it either, because they need help on the defensive line, so that doesn't make much sense to me. I think it's a hell of a hire. He's a very good coach, and I think he's going to do a good job down the road, but I think the first 1 or 2 years, you're not going to see much here from Bo Davis. One, because they're not really recruiting well right now at LSU at that position, and because they really don't have many people. Mason Smith left already. He's gone. He's their best defensive lineman. He's their only defensive lineman. So it's a good hire. It's going to suck. We're going to have to replace him. It's going to be hard to replace him, but I think we'll be able to find some guys. Hopefully we can. And some of the guys that have come to mind that Texas has, or I've seen floating around, Oscar Giles. He is currently the defensive line, or I think he's the defensive line coach at Wyoming. He's also the assistant head coach. It'll be interesting. I think we can draw him back. He's coached at Texas before and did a good job. All those guys that Bo Davis sent to the league, Oscar Giles recruited. Charles Omenihu recruited. Byron Murphy recruited. Tavondre Sweat. He's done a good job, guys. If that's the replacement, I have no issue with that. I think Oscar Giles would do a good job for Texas if he decided to come back. And I think Texas is going to look there. I think Ryan Nielsen, who was the defensive line coach at North Carolina State, who is the current defensive coordinator, but he probably won't because Arthur Smith was fired for the Falcons. At NC State, guys, this guy was there for 3 years and got 6 guys to the NFL. 6 guys in 3 years from North Carolina State. I think, honestly, out of this list that I'm going to name, I think Ryan Nielsen would be the best candidate to replace Bo Davis. 6 guys drafted in 3 years at North Carolina State as the defensive line coach and having experience in the NFL. that'd be a home run hire for Texas if they could get him. And then Frank Oakham, he went to Texas. He's the current Toledo defensive line coach. He's had 2 years in the NFL as a defensive line coach too, with the Panthers and I believe the Raiders. I think that'd be a good hire. You bring someone home who knows Texas. He has experience, obviously, recruiting. He also has pro experience. To me, value pro experience a lot. Bo Davis had pro experience. I think that what's made him so good. If you can get someone that has pro experience and college experience, that's the way to go. So to me, if I'm ranking just these three so far, we'll add another couple in here. I think Ryan Nielsen is by far and away the best hire we could possibly have at the defensive line coach position. He probably could get a defensive line coach position in the NFL. He's a defensive coordinator in the NFL, did a really good job at North Carolina State. So he probably could get a defensive line coaching position in the NFL. And I think you'll know in the next 10 days who's going to be the defensive line coach at Texas. And then I would put Oscar Giles and then Frank Oakham third. Now I'm going to add two other names to this list real quick. And one of them is going to be added just because of what just happened. Freddie Roach, defensive line coach at Alabama. I think he'll probably leave. I think the next coach that comes in is going to get rid of everyone that's left on staff. There's not that many guys. Kevin Steele retiring, Holman Wiggins leaving to Texas A&M. I think they're going to bring in their whole new staff. So I expect Freddie Roach to be a free agent in the coaching world. And I think Texas will kick the tires there. He's a pretty good defensive line coach for Alabama, been there since 2020. And that's another guy on the list. And then Randall Joyner, Ole Miss defensive line coach. Guy's a hell of a recruiter. I don't know how he is developing because most of his guys are portal guys. So we'll have to see with that. Again, guys, if I had to rank these, I'm going Nielsen 1, Oscar Giles 2, Randall Joyner 3, Freddie Roach 4, and then Frank Oakham is last on my list. I think you can get him. He's the defensive line coach for Toledo. Literally, you offer him $750,000, he's going to come to Texas. So, especially being an alum. I don't think any of them are bad options. I think there's only one guy on the list, and Ryan Nielsen, that could live up to Bo Davis. So, that's number one for me. I hope we can get him. If we can't, it's a big deal, but it's not a gigantic loss. We're not losing anyone else. We've retained Jeff Banks. We retained Kyle Flood. We have Steve Sarkisian. We hired Johnny Nansen as the linebacker coach to take over for Jeff Choate. The guy was a defensive coordinator at Arizona and decided to come to Texas and be the linebacker coach. Great hire. He's a fantastic recruiter, and he's a good developer. He's one of those unicorns, guys. There's not many guys that are great recruiters and great developers. He's both. He gets us in with the Polynesian and West Coast communities. So Sark kind of has a staff that hits the whole country. So that really helps out. And Polynesian players have gotten a lot better over the years. They've become kind of a focal point in some aspects of college football. There's a lot of good players. Puka Nacua in the NFL is killing it. So if you can get one or two Polynesian players, Liano Lafau for Texas linebacker, he's going to be working with Johnny Nansen. So if he can continue those ties to the Polynesian community, really helps out. Let's jump into your comments real quick. Dabo goes back to Dabo. Okay, he really wants Dabo. Okay, so Texas lost a couple portal guys. We'll talk about that and then possible additions. Again, guys, please hit the like button. Please subscribe down below. I'm trying to grow this brand, guys. Please help me out. Hit the like button, subscribe down below. It really helps out this channel that we're trying to grow at this Bleeding Burnt Orange show, SG1 Sports Texas channel, and the SEC channel. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Texas losses. They lose Trill Carter to the transfer portal. He goes to Auburn. This only hurts because we lose Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy to the NFL. Alfred Collins is coming back, so that's big. But Trill Carter is a nice piece. He's a good rotation player, but let's be honest here, that's all he is. And you have Jamari Caldwell, who's out there for Houston. He wants to come to Texas. It's pretty well known at this point. If Bo Davis stays, I think he's there already. I think he's waiting. I think he's going to see who we hire at the defensive line coach and what his plan is for him. And if he likes it, he's going to come to Texas. If he doesn't, then he'll move on. But Texas is his number one option at this point, and it would be a hell of a pickup if we get Jamari Caldwell in. He had 6.5 sacks last year and an 82.8 PFF grade. For example, I think Byron Murphy was like 90.1 and Tavondre Sweat was like 90.5 overall PFF grade. So it's a slight downgrade. But if Jamari Caldwell comes to Texas and ups his PFF grade to like an 85, 86, and Alfred Collins was a 79, he can get his up to 85, 86. I don't think that's much of a loss to the defensive tackle position, especially because we're going to be better on the edge. You have Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Ethan Burke, and Barron Sorrell. I think the defensive line actually has a chance to be better than last year overall if we get Jamari Caldwell and a decent defensive line coach. You also lose Jaron Thompson, Keaton Crawford in the secondary. it's as simple, guys. They were told you're going to get spare playing, not much playing time, and you're going to have to go. Keaton Crawford, I think, has a chance in the NFL if he wants to go there. He is a guy that you could probably play, be your third string safety, but he's going to be a special teams player. He is phenomenal. He's the best gunner in college football behind another guy that left in Keelan Robinson. So we lose two really good special teams players. Hopefully some people can step up there. We honestly lose our top three special teams players. We lose Xavier Worthy, Keelan Robinson, and Keaton Crawford. So that's going to hurt. Jeff Banks is the best special teams coach in the country, period. So I trust him for what's going on there. So it's going to be interesting. And Jerrin Thompson, listen, I respect you as a player. I respect you as a person, but there was no room for you here. You're not that good. With Andrew Makuba coming in, hopefully Jahdae Barron coming back and cross-trained at safety, and then Xavier Filsaime, Derek Williams, Michael Tapp, there was no room here. He was going to get – the only way he was getting playing time if someone got hurt. So those are the three guys that we've lost since last week when I've been talking to you guys. And then possible transfer portal guys to add. You have Silas Bolden from Oregon State, who I love. I think he's a perfect fit for what Steve Sarkisian wants to do. 54 receptions, 746 yards, 13.8 yards per catch, 5 touchdowns as well, 23.1 yards per kick return. And then this guy's, he's only had 3 returns as a punt returner, but 97 yards, 32.3 yards per return and 1 touchdown. Dynamic playmaker, fast playmaker, fantastic playmaker. Reminds me of Cavante Turpin, but a little bit bigger. I think it'd be fantastic for them. CJ Daniels from Liberty, bigger play threat, 6'2" guy, kind of bigger, kind of the Isaiah Nair role, honestly. 55 receptions, 1,067 yards, 19.4 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns. And then 8 receptions, 79 yards versus Oregon. So he's really the only one that did anything versus Oregon. Now, I will say, guys, if Isaiah Bond enters the transfer portal and Ryan Williams does, in fact, go to Texas, I think that leaves you with one spot. So it becomes Isaiah Bond, CJ Daniels, or Silas Bolden. To me, at that point, if Ryan Williams does go to Texas, you got to let CJ Daniels go. They resemble each other too much. We don't need to repeat what we already have. So bring in Ryan Williams and then concentrate on either Silas Bolden or Isaiah Bond. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I know as Isaiah Bond put up good numbers at Alabama, I want Silas Bolden. I think Silas Bolden gives you a kick returner and punt returner, and he's fast as hell, game-breaking type speed. So if you end up, think about this, guys. We end up with Ryan Wingo, Ryan Williams, Silas Bolden, and Matthew Golden added, plus Parker Livingstone. This wide receiver room will be fine. And someone put out a perfect tweet. I think Longhorns have seen it. I'm not sure who said it. Last year, the wide receivers elevated Quinn Ewers. This year, Quinn Ewers is going to have to elevate the wide receivers. And to me, that's not a bad wide receiver room. Like if you have Silas Bolden, Ryan Williams, Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Niblett, Matthew Golden, that's a B wide receiver room. Last year, we had an A wide receiver room. That's a B. You lost a letter grade, plus your offensive line is returning 4 out of 5 starters and probably going to be better, and your running backs are going to be better. CJ Baxter's going to be a year older. Jaden Blue's going to be a year older. You're going to have a year under your belt in Sark's system again, Quinn. This offense should honestly get a little bit better. So those are the guys that they could add. On top of that, you have tight ends. Justin Jolly, tight end out of UConn transfer. He could come. And then Benjamin Urosic from Stanford could also come to Texas. Like I said, Amari Niblock, if he gets in the transfer portal, I think Texas will be all over him. So the possibility of this Texas team looking probably better on offense. I think you're going to see overall the Texas offense become a little bit better. I think the defense is going to come down to, can the defensive line get more pressure next year? If the answer to that is yes, the defense will be better. If the answer to that is no, will the secondary be better? I think it will be. It will have more talent than it did last year, and it should get better. I hope that's the case, but you never know, guys. So I think that's all I got for you guys today. Again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel, guys. I'm trying to grow a brand here. This is another edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange Show here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with the SEC Mark Rogers channel and the Texas SG1 Sports channel. Subscribe to both. Like the content on both. It really helps out. I will be here every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. It really helps out if you guys are here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. And if you're going to go get tickets, go to ticketsmarter.com and type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 or more, and then type in code BIG20 for $20 off $20 off a purchase of $300 or more. It's basketball season. I just went to Texas Cincinnati last night. Hell of a game, hell of a finish. Got my picture with Dylan Disu. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below and follow me on Twitter at MatthewMS97. I tweet about sports. That's basically all I tweet about. Thank you guys for being here. Again, another edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange show here on Mark Rogers TV, the SEC channel. Hook 'em, guys, and we'll be back next week per usual. Thank you.